The Roman Empire, a name that echoes through the corridors of history, conjuring images of mighty legions, grand marble temples, and an authority that once stretched from the windswept hills of Britain to the sun-soaked deserts of Egypt. To this day, Rome's legacy shapes the world, our governments, languages, architecture, and even the roads we travel. But how did a small city-state on the Italian peninsula rise to dominate the known world? How did its people, its armies, and its rulers build an empire that would last for centuries and leave an indelible mark on civilization? The story of Rome is not a simple tale of battles and emperors. It is a story of ambition, innovation, and resilience. It is a story of ordinary people whose extraordinary achievements shaped history. From humble beginnings, as a small village on the banks of the Tiber River, Rome grew into a sprawling empire that became the benchmark of power and civilization. Its journey was not linear. It was filled with conflict, political intrigue, brilliant leadership, devastating defeats, and moments of remarkable ingenuity. As we embark on this exploration of Rome's glory, we will witness the rise of the Republic, the cunning and ambition of its leaders, and the eventual transformation into an empire that commanded the loyalty and fear of nations. We will delve into the lives of emperors and soldiers, philosophers and poets, merchants and slaves. Every brick of the Colosseum, every aqueduct spanning the Roman countryside, every law recorded in the 12 tables tells a story of ingenuity, ambition, and the quest for immortality. This journey is more than a history lesson. It is an immersion into a civilization that defined an era and whose echoes still resonate in the world today. Through wars, politics, culture, and conquest, we will trace Rome's ascent, its moment of unparalleled glory, and the challenges that eventually tested the empire's resilience. By the end of our journey, we will not only understand Rome's greatness, but also why it continues to capture our imagination centuries after its fall. Rome was not built in a day, but its story is one that can fill countless days with wonder, intrigue, and awe. And so, our journey begins. Long before the Roman Empire stretched across continents, Rome was little more than a cluster of villages perched on the 7 hills beside the Tiber River. Legend holds that the city was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus, a figure as much myth as man, who, with his twin brother Remus, was raised by a she-wolf. Whether myth or history, this story symbolizes the Roman spirit, survival against odds, determination, and an unyielding sense of destiny. Rome's early years were dominated by kings, the monarchy shaping the fledgling city's institutions and rituals. But by the late 6th century BCE, the Romans grew restless under regal authority. The story of Lucretia, a noblewoman whose tragic fate sparked outrage, ignited a revolution. The people of Rome rose against the last king, Tarquin the Proud, and in 509 BCE, they established something revolutionary: a republic. No longer would one man wield unchecked power. Instead, Rome would be governed by the will of its citizens, or at least the patricians, the aristocratic families who controlled much of its political life. The Roman Republic was a delicate balancing act. Power was shared among elected magistrates, the Senate, and popular assemblies. Consuls, elected each year, acted as the chief executives and military leaders. The Senate, composed of Rome's elite, became the backbone of decision-making, guiding policy with an emphasis on tradition and pragmatism. Over time, plebeians, common citizens, fought for a voice in government, slowly reshaping the republic's political landscape and enshrining laws in the 12 tables, Rome's first codified legal system. These early reforms would echo for centuries, forming the framework of governance that influenced countless civilizations that followed. But the Republic's early years were not merely about politics. They were a test of survival. Rome faced threats on all sides: hostile neighboring tribes, raids by Etruscans and Sabines, and internal strife. The city's leaders understood that for Rome to endure, they needed not only laws and governance,
but also unity and the disciplined military. From these turbulent beginnings arose a culture that valued duty, loyalty, and courage, virtues that would define Rome in the centuries to come. By establishing the Republic, Rome laid the foundations for expansion. It was a system designed to endure, adaptable to the trials of warfare, diplomacy, and leadership crises. The early Republic was not perfect, often riddled with internal tensions and social inequality, but it set a precedent that power could be shared, contested, and earned, not simply inherited. And it was this political ingenuity, combined with military prowess, that would prepare Rome to move beyond its hills and conquer the Italian peninsula, setting the stage for a journey that would eventually touch every corner of the known world.
With the Republic established, Rome's ambitions extended far beyond its city walls. The Italian peninsula was a patchwork of tribes, city-states, and emerging powers, each vying for dominance. From the Etruscans in the north to the Greek colonies in the south, the landscape was a mosaic of cultures, rivalries, and opportunity. Rome, small yet disciplined and determined, set its sights on unifying the peninsula under its rule. The Roman army became the instrument of this ambition. Unlike the mercenary forces of other states, Rome relied on citizen soldiers, farmers, craftsmen, and laborers who trained rigorously and fought with a sense of duty to their city. This system fostered loyalty and resilience, as each soldier's fate was tied to Rome's destiny. Over time, these legions perfected their tactics, organized in flexible formations that could adapt to any battlefield, giving Rome a strategic edge over its neighbors. Rome's path to dominance was a combination of diplomacy, strategic alliances, and brutal warfare. Conquered cities were not merely subjugated, many were integrated into Rome's political framework, granted varying degrees of citizenship and local autonomy. This approach fostered loyalty, ensuring that newly acquired territories contributed manpower, resources, and stability to the growing republic. Those who resisted faced the full force of Roman discipline, a reputation for military efficiency, and an unyielding will that often led to complete submission. Key conflicts during this period shaped Rome's early identity. Wars with the Samnites, fierce mountain tribes of central Italy, tested Rome's endurance and adaptability. Each encounter honed the legion's skills and demonstrated the Republic's capacity for long-term campaigns. In southern Italy, the Greeks of Magna Graecia presented a different challenge, a sophisticated culture with fortified cities and well-trained armies. Rome learned not only to fight, but also to absorb and adopt innovations, from military techniques to aspects of urban planning, blending them into its own evolving civilization. By the mid-4th century BCE, Rome had emerged as the dominant power in central Italy, poised to expand further. This period of consolidation and conquest was not merely about land, it was about shaping a political and cultural identity that would underpin the Republic for centuries. Rome's success in Italy laid the groundwork for future ambitions, proving that the Republic could combine military strength with political acumen, diplomacy, and integration, a formula that would eventually allow it to challenge the great powers of the Mediterranean and beyond. Rome had transformed from a cluster of hills and villages into a formidable regional power. The lessons learned, the alliances forged, and the battles won in these early years of expansion would echo throughout the Republic's history, shaping the mindset and capabilities that would one day carry Rome from the Italian peninsula to the farthest reaches of the known world. As Rome consolidated power across Italy, another great civilization loomed across the sea: Carthage. Nestled on the coast of North Africa, Carthage was a wealthy maritime city-state, dominating trade in the Western Mediterranean. It was a rival Rome could not ignore, and soon, the two powers collided in a series of conflicts that would define Rome's rise and shape the destiny of the Mediterranean world, the Punic Wars. The First Punic War,
264 to 241 BCE, began over control of Sicily, a vital island for trade and strategic dominance. Rome, traditionally a land-based power, faced a formidable naval adversary in Carthage. Initially unprepared for war at sea, the Romans innovated. They built fleets, adapted techniques, and developed the corvus, a boarding device that allowed Roman soldiers to fight on ships as if they were on land. This ingenuity turned the tide, demonstrating Rome's adaptability and relentless determination. After more than 2 decades of grueling conflict, Rome emerged victorious, gaining Sicily as its first overseas province, a historic expansion that marked the beginning of Rome as a Mediterranean power. Yet victory was only the beginning. Carthage, smarting from defeat, rebuilt its strength and the new threat emerged, the Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, led by one of history's most brilliant generals, Hannibal Barca. Hannibal's audacious crossing of the Alps with war elephants stunned Rome and brought the fight to its doorstep. Battles such as Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and the devastating ambush at Cannae showcased Hannibal's tactical genius and inflicted shocking losses on Roman forces. For a moment, it seemed Rome might crumble under this unstoppable force. But the resilience of Rome proved stronger than any single army. Rather than seeking immediate confrontation, Roman leaders adopted a strategy of attrition, avoiding direct engagement while harassing Hannibal's supply lines. The Republic mobilized its resources, recalled armies from other fronts, and demonstrated extraordinary organizational discipline. Ultimately, it was Rome's ability to combine strategic patience with relentless pressure that turned the tide. Under the command of Scipio Africanus, Roman forces crossed into North Africa, forcing Hannibal to return home. At the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, Rome achieved a decisive victory, cementing its supremacy in the Western Mediterranean. The Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE, was less about strategy and more about ruthlessness. Rome, wary of any resurgence of Carthaginian power, laid siege to the city of Carthage itself. The conflict ended in total destruction. The city was razed, its people enslaved, and its lands absorbed into the growing Roman Republic. The eradication of Carthage sent a clear message. Rome was now unchallenged in the Western Mediterranean, its path to empire wide open. The Punic Wars were more than military conflicts. They were transformative events. Rome's victories expanded its territories, enriched its treasury, and demonstrated its ability to adapt, innovate, and endure against formidable adversaries. These wars forged the culture of resilience and pragmatism, lessons that would carry the Republic through internal upheaval and set the stage for its eventual transformation into an empire. Rome had emerged not merely as a conqueror of Italy, but as a force capable of shaping the fate of nations across the Mediterranean.
By the 1st century BCE, Rome had become a sprawling power, but the very success that brought it wealth and territory also sowed seeds of political instability. The Republic, built for a city-state of hills and valleys, now governed a vast empire of diverse peoples, cultures, and distant provinces. Its political structures, designed for consensus and rotation of power, struggled to manage ambition, corruption, and the pressures of expansion. It was in this crucible that the Caesars, ambitious men with visions of power, rose to reshape Rome forever. Gaius Julius Caesar, one of history's most renowned figures, embodied both the promise and peril of Rome's republic. Born into a patrician family, Caesar's rise was marked by brilliance, charisma, and relentless ambition. His military campaigns, particularly in Gaul, expanded Rome's territories dramatically, bringing immense wealth and glory to the Republic. Yet with each victory, Caesar accumulated not just lands and spoils, but the loyalty of legions who saw in him a leader capable of greatness, sometimes greater than the state itself. This growing power alarmed Rome's traditional political elite. The Senate, long wary of individuals amassing too much influence, saw Caesar as a threat to the Republic's delicate balance. Tensions escalated, culminating in the fateful crossing of the Rubicon in 49 BCE, when Caesar led his army into Italy, declaring defiance against the Senate and igniting a civil war. "The die is cast," he reportedly said, signaling a point of no return. Rome itself became a battlefield, its streets and temples caught in the turmoil of competing armies and rival factions. Caesar's eventual victory did not end conflict, but it marked a profound shift. He was appointed dictator for life, centralizing power in a way that challenged centuries of republican tradition. His reforms touched nearly every aspect of Roman life: reorganization of the calendar, expansion of citizenship, land redistribution, and efforts to alleviate debt and inequality. Yet his concentration of power provoked fear and resentment among those who prized the republic's principles over personal ambition. The fateful Ides of March, 44 BCE, brought Caesar's assassination, a dramatic and bloody attempt to restore the republic. But the killing of one man could not revive a system already strained by decades of expansion, inequality, and political rivalry. Civil wars followed, pitting Caesars against one another in a struggle for ultimate authority. It was during this period that Augustus, born Gaius Octavius, would emerge, navigating the treacherous waters of Roman politics with cunning and patience, eventually establishing the Principate, the foundation of the Roman Empire. The rise of the Caesars marked the end of the Republic and the dawn of imperial Rome. It demonstrated the delicate balance between ambition and governance, the fragility of political systems under the weight of expansion, and the transformative power of charismatic leadership. Rome's transition was not merely a change of rulers, but a fundamental evolution in the way power, loyalty, and authority were exercised, a change that would define the empire for centuries to come.
With Augustus firmly in power, Rome entered a period that would be remembered as one of its greatest achievements, the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. Stretching roughly 2 centuries, from 27 BCE to 180 CE, this era was characterized by unprecedented stability, economic prosperity, and territorial expansion. The empire, once fractured by civil war and political strife, now experienced a rare period of order, allowing culture, trade, and infrastructure to flourish like never before. Under the Pax Romana, the empire's borders expanded to their greatest reach, from the windswept moors of Britain to the deserts of Arabia and the rivers of Mesopotamia. Rome's legions, disciplined and organized, maintained security, protecting trade routes and enforcing the law of the empire. Roads, bridges, and aqueducts spanned the continent, facilitating movement of armies, goods, and ideas. Cities grew, markets thrived, and the Roman economy became the engine of the Mediterranean world. Life during this golden age was varied depending on one's status. Wealthy patricians adorned their villas with marble, mosaics, and exotic imports, while common citizens enjoyed public entertainment, gladiatorial games in the Colosseum, chariot races in the Circus Maximus, and festivals celebrating Roman gods and emperors. The empire was remarkably cosmopolitan, incorporating peoples, languages, and religions from across its vast territories. Trade brought spices from the east, grain from Egypt, and olive oil from Hispania, enriching Rome and binding the empire together through commerce. The Pax Romana also fostered cultural and intellectual achievements. Roman architecture reached new heights with monumental buildings like the Pantheon, theaters, and monumental aqueducts. Literature and philosophy flourished, with writers such as Virgil, Ovid, and Seneca shaping the intellectual landscape of Rome and leaving works that would influence generations for centuries to come. Engineering feats, from roads to sewage systems, showcase Roman ingenuity and practicality, blending functionality with grandeur. Yet, even during this age of peace, challenges remained. Governing an empire that spanned thousands of miles required careful administration and efficient governance. Emperors relied on a vast bureaucracy, provincial governors, and local elites to maintain order. Social inequality persisted, and slavery remained central to the economy. Still, the relative peace allowed for a flourishing of civilization that would be unparalleled in Europe for centuries to come. The Pax Romana stands as a testament to Rome's capacity to maintain order, foster prosperity, and unite a vast and diverse empire under a common identity. It was a period in which the might of Rome was not just measured by the strength of its armies, but by its ability to create stability, culture, and innovation on a scale unmatched in the ancient world. The empire had reached its zenith, an apex of power, wealth, and influence that would define the golden image of Rome for all history to admire.
While the Pax Romana brought peace and prosperity, the true soul of the empire lay in the lives of its people, the citizens, slaves, soldiers, and elites whose daily existence wove together the fabric of Roman civilization. Understanding Roman society is key to understanding the empire's enduring legacy. Life in Rome varied greatly depending on one's social status. The elite patricians lived in spacious, marble-floored villas adorned with frescoes, sculptures, and intricate mosaics. They hosted elaborate feasts featuring imported delicacies, olives from Hispania, fish sauce from Gaul, wine from the vineyards of Italy, and spices from the East. Education was highly valued among the upper classes. Boys studied rhetoric, philosophy, and law, preparing to serve in the Senate or as military officers, while girls were educated in household management and culture, shaping the next generation of Roman society. For the common citizens, or plebeians, life was a balance of work and leisure. Most lived in crowded apartment blocks called insulae, often precarious but bustling with activity. Markets and shops filled the streets with vendors selling bread, wine, and fresh produce. Public baths were a central part of daily life, providing not just hygiene, but a place for socialization, business, and relaxation. Festivals, theatrical performances, and gladiatorial games offered entertainment and communal identity, reinforcing loyalty to the city and its traditions. Religion permeated every aspect of Roman life. Romans worshipped a pantheon of gods, each overseeing different aspects of existence. Jupiter ruled the skies, Mars commanded war, Venus presided over love. Religious ceremonies and sacrifices were performed not only to honor the gods, but to ensure prosperity and political stability. Over time, Rome absorbed gods and rituals from conquered peoples, reflecting the empire's cosmopolitan nature and pragmatic approach to governance. Roman innovation extended far beyond culture and religion. Architecture and engineering were hallmarks of the empire, combining functionality with grandeur. The Colosseum, capable of seating over 50,000 spectators, showcased both Rome's engineering genius and its appetite for spectacle. Aqueducts transported fresh water across vast distances, supporting cities and public baths. Roads crisscrossed the empire, enabling trade, military movement, and communication. Innovations in concrete allowed buildings to reach unprecedented heights, while urban planning reflected meticulous organization and an understanding of civic life. The empire was also a hub of knowledge and learning. Romans excelled in law, politics, and administration, codifying principles that still influence modern legal systems. Medicine, astronomy, and engineering were advanced for the era, often blending practical experience with inherited knowledge from Greece, Egypt, and Mesopotamia. Literature and philosophy explored human nature, morality, and the responsibilities of citizenship, leaving a legacy that would echo through the Renaissance and beyond. Roman society was complex and layered, a delicate balance of privilege, labor, devotion, and ambition. It was a civilization that celebrated innovation, discipline, and cultural synthesis. The grandeur of its monuments, the sophistication of its cities, and the vibrancy of daily life reflected a society confident in its power and vision.
Through the lens of its people, one can see how Rome's greatness was not solely in its conquests or emperors, but in the enduring human spirit that shaped, maintained, and enriched the empire for centuries. At the heart of Rome's enduring power lay its military, an institution that was not only the engine of conquest, but also the backbone of the empire's stability. The Roman army was more than soldiers. It was a disciplined, organized, and adaptable force that combined strategy, training, and innovation in ways that set Rome apart from every other civilization of the ancient world. The legion, Rome's fundamental military unit, was a marvel of organization. Composed of citizen soldiers, each legion consisted of roughly 5,000 men divided into centuries and cohorts, allowing flexibility on the battlefield. Soldiers were trained to fight in tight formations, to maneuver collectively, and to execute complex strategies under extreme pressure. Discipline was paramount. Desertion and cowardice were harshly punished, while bravery and loyalty were rewarded with land, wealth, and social recognition. Rome's military success was built not only on its soldiers, but also on its leadership. Generals were both tacticians and political figures, understanding that military victories could translate into political power. Figures like Julius Caesar, Scipio Africanus, and later emperors leveraged military success to consolidate authority and expand Rome's influence. Yet even the most brilliant general relied on the cohesion, training, and morale of his troops. Rome's adaptability was key to its military dominance. The army could construct forts and roads rapidly, supply itself over vast distances, and modify tactics to counter different enemies, from the disciplined phalanxes of the Greeks to the guerrilla tactics of the Gauls and the elephants of Carthage. Siegecraft, engineering, and logistics were just as important as sword and spear. The legions could build bridges, fortifications, and camps with astonishing speed, turning strategic advantage into victory. Beyond conquest, the military maintained order within the empire. Garrisons protected provincial borders, ensuring loyalty and suppressing rebellion. Soldiers often became administrators, engineers, and settlers, spreading Roman culture and infrastructure across conquered lands. The army was both a tool of domination and a means of integration, helping Rome knit together a vast, multicultural empire. However, Rome's reliance on military power was a double-edged sword. Generals, with the loyalty of their legions, could challenge the state itself, as seen during the civil wars of the late Republic. The tension between military authority and political governance would shape the rise of the Caesars and the eventual establishment of imperial rule. Yet even amidst these risks, the legions remained the lifeblood of Rome, the ever-present symbol of its strength, discipline, and ambition. The Roman army was more than a fighting force. It was a social institution, a training ground for leadership, and a mechanism for spreading Roman order and culture. Its strategies, organization, and adaptability made it nearly unstoppable, ensuring that Rome's influence would reach across continents and centuries. Without the legions, the grandeur of Roman architecture, the wealth of its cities, and the stability of its empire would have remained impossible. Rome's military might was not just about conquest. It was the foundation upon which an entire civilization was built. Even at the height of its power, the Roman Empire was not invincible. Its vast size and diverse population created vulnerabilities that demanded constant attention. While the Pax Romana brought peace and stability, Rome faced continuous challenges, from political intrigue in the heart of the city to rebellions in far-flung provinces, and from external threats along its borders to internal unrest fueled by social inequality. Political intrigue was ever present in Rome's corridors of power. Emperors, senators, and ambitious generals navigated a world of shifting alliances, conspiracies, and backroom deals. Assassinations, betrayals, and coups were not uncommon, as individuals sought power and influence in a system where authority often depended on personal loyalty and military support rather than institutional stability. The Senate, once the pinnacle of republican governance, became a complex web of factions where ambition, fear, and rivalry frequently determined decisions as much as reason or law. Beyond the city, revolts and unrest tested Rome's ability to maintain control. Conquered peoples from Gaul to Judea occasionally resisted taxation, military conscription, or the imposition of Roman customs. Some uprisings were brutally suppressed, while others required delicate negotiation and diplomacy. These revolts reminded Rome that an empire built on force alone could never endure. It had to blend authority with governance, integrating local leaders and respecting traditions where possible. The borders of the empire were another constant concern. Along the Rhine and Danube, Germanic tribes and other northern peoples posed persistent threats, raiding settlements and challenging Roman garrisons. In the east, Parthians and later Sassanids tested Rome's military strength with sophisticated strategies and formidable armies. Defending such a vast territory required not only soldiers, but a network of roads, forts, and intelligence, ensuring rapid response to emerging threats. Economic pressures also weighed heavily on the empire. Maintaining armies, infrastructure, and public services required enormous resources. Heavy taxation, reliance on slave labor, and economic inequality sometimes sparked unrest, particularly in provinces far from the imperial center. Natural disasters, famine, or epidemics could further strain the system, revealing the fragility beneath Rome's grandeur. Yet, Rome often demonstrated remarkable resilience. Leaders adapted strategies, deployed legions strategically, and invested in diplomacy and infrastructure to manage both internal and external pressures. Administrative reforms, regional governors, and legal systems helped sustain order, even as the empire expanded to unprecedented proportions. These challenges, while constant, shaped the empire's evolution, pushing it to innovate politically, militarily, and socially. The story of Rome is not just one of triumph, but also of endurance in the face of complexity. Political intrigue, revolts, and border threats were not signs of inevitable collapse, but tests of the empire's adaptability and strength. By navigating these challenges, Rome could maintain its dominance for centuries, a testament to the skill, discipline, and vision that define one of history's greatest civilizations.
Even the mightiest empires are not immune to the forces of time, and Rome was no exception. By the 3rd century CE, cracks began to appear in the foundations of what had once seemed an eternal civilization. The empire faced economic strain, political instability, and growing pressure from external invaders, challenges that, over time, eroded the power and cohesion of Rome. Economic difficulties were among the first signs of trouble. The cost of maintaining vast armies, extensive infrastructure, and bureaucratic administration placed enormous burdens on the treasury. Inflation weakened the currency, and trade disruptions caused by piracy, war, and declining production further destabilized the economy. Landowners concentrated wealth in the hands of the few, while peasants and small farmers struggled under heavy taxation. These pressures created social tension and reduced the empire's ability to respond effectively to internal and external threats. Political instability also intensified. The 3rd century alone saw a rapid turnover of emperors, often brought to power by the support of the army and removed by the same force. Civil wars, assassinations, and rival claimants to the throne undermined authority and made governance unpredictable. The central government struggled to maintain control over distant provinces, and local leaders increasingly acted with autonomy, sometimes ignoring imperial directives. The once efficient bureaucracy faced corruption and inefficiency, weakening Rome's administrative grip. External threats became increasingly severe. Germanic tribes, Huns, and other nomadic groups pressed on the empire's borders, raiding, pillaging, and sometimes settling within Roman lands. The empire's military, once disciplined and unmatched, now faced overstretched resources and recruitment challenges. Defense required constant vigilance, yet attacks became more frequent and destructive.
particularly along the Rhine, Danube, and northern frontiers. Cultural and social factors also played a role in Rome's decline. Traditional civic virtues, which had once inspired loyalty and sacrifice, eroded over generations. Divisions between the wealthy elite and the poor widened. Religious shifts altered societal cohesion, and the vastness of the empire made communication and unity increasingly difficult. The sense of a shared Roman identity, once the glue holding the empire together, began to fray. Despite these challenges, Rome did not collapse overnight. Emperors such as Diocletian and Constantine implemented reforms, dividing administrative regions, stabilizing the economy, and embracing new religious systems like Christianity to preserve the empire. Yet these measures could only delay the inevitable. The combination of economic stress, political fragmentation, social change, and relentless external pressure had set Rome on a slow path toward transformation and eventual decline. The beginning of decline was not a dramatic end, but a gradual erosion of strength, unity, and resilience. Rome's brilliance persisted in culture, law, and infrastructure, but the empire that once seemed invincible was now vulnerable. The lessons of this period revealed the limits of even the greatest civilizations and the fragility inherent in maintaining power across continents, peoples, and centuries. Though the Western Roman Empire eventually fell in 476 CE, its legacy did not vanish with the last emperor. Rome's influence endures, woven into the fabric of modern civilization, from law and governance to language, architecture, and culture. Understanding this legacy reveals why Rome remains one of history's most remarkable civilizations. Roman law, meticulously codified and systematized, became the foundation for legal systems in Europe and beyond. Principles of justice, contracts, property rights, and civic duty, developed over centuries, continue to influence courts and governments to this day. The concept of a republic with elected representatives, checks on power, and civic responsibility owes much to Rome's political experiments and innovations. Architecture and engineering remain among Rome's most visible contributions. The use of concrete, arches, aqueducts, and monumental construction set standards for building that have endured for millennia. Colosseums, amphitheaters, bridges, and roads were not merely functional. They embodied Roman ideals of power, utility, and aesthetic excellence. Cities across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East still reflect Roman planning principles, from grid layouts to public forums and infrastructure. Language, too, was shaped by Rome. Latin, the language of administration, literature, and law, became the root of the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Even today, Latin terms permeate medicine, science, law, and literature, reminding us of Rome's intellectual heritage. Roman literature, philosophy, and rhetoric continue to educate and inspire, shaping Western thought and cultural ideals. Rome's military and administrative innovations left a blueprint for statecraft and empire building. Strategies for governance, taxation, and provincial management informed later empires, while the organization and discipline of the legions became a model for armies throughout history. The very notion of empire, the capacity to unite diverse peoples under a single political and cultural framework, owes much to Rome's experience. Perhaps most importantly, Rome's legacy is one of resilience, adaptability, and ambition. Its story is not merely one of conquest, but of ideas, culture, and human achievement. Through the rise and fall of emperors, the triumphs of legions, the genius of engineers and architects, and the endurance of laws and institutions, Rome shaped the trajectory of history. It reminds us that even empires are built not only with armies and walls, but with vision, culture, and the unyielding efforts of countless individuals across generations. The glory of Rome may have faded, but its echo endures. Its lessons in governance, military strategy, engineering, law, and culture continue to resonate, centuries after the empire's fall. Rome stands as a testament to human ambition and ingenuity, a civilization that not only conquered the world, but also left it profoundly transformed. The story of Rome is in many ways the story of civilization itself, a reminder of what humanity can achieve, endure, and leave behind. If you enjoyed this video and are still not subscribed, please consider it, as it really helps me out a lot. Thank you.